Well, I think the story really is around the digitization of borders over the last maybe 15 to 20 years. We've seen really that process began with e-passports, so the electronic passport, which has a chip in it, which stores all the same data. And that has allowed really over the last 15 to 20 years an explosion in what you might call the digitization of borders. What's happened in more recent years is a very, very rapid increase in the quality of face biometrics, where we used to have to rely on fingerprints, and now we can use face biometrics much more commonly because of a rapid increase in quality. And that has created a revolution, really, in terms of the way that border control works. Well, the first thing to say about risk is that the digitization of borders has actually massively reduced one of the key border control risks that we used to see, which was the ability for criminals, terrorists, and others with bad intentions to travel around in multiple identities. Before we could bind with biometrics you to your document, you were able to travel around the world in multiple identities, and that's what criminals did. And so the general point that I would make is that the border is a much safer process today than it used to be because of the biometric binding, because of the ability that we can link, using biometrics, a person to a document. And that means that criminals, it's much more difficult now for a criminal to travel around in multiple identities. We still have risks in this with digital borders, but the risks are slightly different. Now we have new risks that we have to deal with, things like morphed photographs, presentation attacks, injection attacks. And so I think the important thing to say is AI is causing some new risks, but it also provides us with the solutions to those risks. So the real opportunity that digital borders gives us is effectively to export the border, which means the data exchange between the person and the government can be earlier, much earlier in the process than used to be possible. What used to happen before we had the digitalization of borders is that all of the important work had to happen at the border point as you arrive, crossing the border, and you've got to prove your identity and your intentions to the government. And the beauty of digital borders is that we can actually do most of the hard work that we need to do before you even travel, using a system that we call IDV, identity verification, done remotely, either online or on an app on your mobile device. And that means two things. One, the government is able to make its checks about you and make a determination about any risks that you pose, in the most part, before you even arrive. The benefit from the traveler's point of view is that the process on arrival can potentially be much quicker, much less difficult, because you already proved who you are in advance. I think that the question has always been about a balance between security and what in the borders world we would call facilitation. So security, on the one hand, the government needs to secure its borders, and facilitation meaning convenience, the extent to which we can easily facilitate quick movement of people across borders, people who are legitimate visitors. And so in the past, before we had digital borders, there was always a trade-off between security and facilitation. If I wanted to increase the security of my border, I might need then to inconvenience the traveling public a little bit to make that possible. And the opposite was also true. If I want to make life a little bit quicker and more convenient for the traveling public, the government might need to allow a slight reduction in the level of security check in order to enable that. And the real revolution that we've seen in the last 20 years with the digital border is we're able to increase both the security of the border and the convenience of travel at the same time. We can make the border both more secure and more convenient, and we do that by properly applying these new innovative technologies that I've talked about, including face biometrics.